If the following statement is true, Miami wins this game. The Hurricanes have the edge on both lines of scrimmage against Notre Dame.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The calm before the storm. We are one day away. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Post Game on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. With our special guest today, we'll talk about some of the matchups. We'll talk about the 5 team captains that have just been revealed by the University of Miami football social media accounts. And I think who these captains are says a lot about the leadership on Mario Cristobal's team right now. But let's bring it, the man you're going to be seeing and hearing right after games this season, as you did last season, and you're going to be hearing and seeing this beautiful mug of his right after Miami beats Notre Dame on Sunday night. We got the postcast king, our man GRIES. Jim Grieshaber is with us. Gries, now, first of all, let's start with this, man. You were telling me off air, and I'm not going to argue with you. You think Miami's got the advantage on not one, but on both lines of scrimmage tomorrow night?
Yeah, Alex, it's good to be talking to you again, man. It means it's football season. It means that we are ready to welcome Notre Dame back into the Palace of Pain. You know, we need to do something to give that home field advantage. Never going to match the Orange Bowl, but I'm so pumped for this game. And one of the biggest reasons why, as you just mentioned it, this time, Miami is ready for Notre Dame. Now, I know in 2017, 40-point shellacking, right? I think 41-8 was the final in that game, but a very different Notre Dame team and a very different Notre Dame program, as you well know. Last year, 36 points a game. They had a really elite offense last year and a very good defense. Lost a lot of players to the NFL, but last year's not this year. And everybody's talking about Carson Beck, and rightfully so, 68% career completion percentage. He lost 3 games in his career, 2 of them in Alabama. When you think of what Carson Beck has done, it's been illustrious. It's been elite. We were talking about him last year as one of the greatest quarterbacks maybe in the history of college football. Had he had another elite year and done the things that he was capable of doing at Georgia, then maybe we'd be talking about something very different right now. For sure we would be. But in Miami, he's here trying to replicate what Cam Ward did. And when I look at the line of scrimmage and the offensive line in front of Carson Beck, because if Carson Beck's had any trouble at all in his career, we all know this, it's well documented, it's been with that elite pressure in his face. Well, number one, he's not going to see pressure like he saw in the SEC against Notre Dame. They don't have that kind of defensive front like he's seen in the past and in the games that he struggled. So that's number one. And a big part of the reason why I feel safe and secure and comfortable right now, getting a great night's sleep every night leading up to this game, if I'm Carson Beck, is that offensive line in front of him. I mean, Cam Ward came in last year after a 5-7 year at Washington State. Look what he did. Became the number 1 pick in the draft. Nobody expected that. Big part of the reason why Miami's offensive line just keeps getting better and better and better. And with a coach like Mario Cristobal, an elite offensive lineman, when he played, of course you're going to have that. That should be the strength of the team. And as I look at Carson Beck and I see that wall of orange in front of me, and I mean, I love this offensive line, Alex. I could go on all day, but I love MAUIGOA, and I know he's been named a captain. You talked about this. I love those tackles. I love the matchup against Notre Dame's defensive ends. I think Carson Beck's going to have all day to throw the ball. But in the running game, the interior of the Miami offensive line, so much better coming into the season this year. And I think Carson Beck is not only going to have a lot of time to throw the ball, I think the elite backfield of the University of Miami. And when's the last time we saw so much depth in the backfield? You have to go back to the Don Solinger days, right? It's Mark Fletcher and then a whole bunch of incredibly talented backs right there with him and behind him. So as I look at that offensive line for Miami, and I know I haven't even touched on the defensive front, Alex, you see them every day. I know it's been limited with the 11-on-11, but how do you feel about the offensive line? Do you share my enthusiasm? I think this might be, I dare I say right now, either the offensive or the defensive front. Between the two, that's the best unit on the team. One of the two, I believe.
Yeah, and I do think, you know, if you compare offensive line to offensive line, I think Miami has at least a slight advantage. I mean, it's so solid, especially having CeCe Maui-Noah and Inez Cooper back on the right side, which probably the strongest right side of any offensive line
Cooper's
in America.
a bull.
But the one new guy you have in is your center, James Brockermeyer, who's a senior, and he was all conference at his position at TCU, and he's been practicing really well. So I think Miami's offensive line, stacks up. Obviously Notre Dame has been an offensive line factory historically, and I think they have a very good unit. I think they have more questions in terms of new starters, especially for this game, having their main right guard being injured, having a little bit of a shuffle there. So I give Miami the advantage in that regard. And Grease, when I flip it over to the defensive side of the line of scrimmage for Miami, we have
defensive ends.
Oh yeah. There are some questions about the interior depth, not the exterior depth. I mean, Miami is defensive end, and I start with RUEBEN BAIN and Akeem Mesidor, and I think the matchups that could decide this football game are their matchups with the right and left tackle of the Fighting Irish. Because I mentioned, some questions about the interior of the Irish offensive line. They don't have questions at offensive tackle. So I think their matchups, and you're talking about Anthony Knapp at the left tackle spot and Emil Wagner at the right tackle spot. The matchups they have against RUEBEN BAIN and Akeem Mesidor could decide this football game, Grease, when Miami is going to try to keep that true freshman quarterback, or not true freshman, redshirt freshman quarterback, but first-time starter, CJ Carr, feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and it does start at the defensive end spot for Miami, and I really am excited about this group. And Alex, we know the one thing about the University of Miami, whenever this program has been elite, whenever those trophies have been raised, that defensive line has been the strength of the team. We can talk all day about quarterback and Cam Ward took that to a whole nother level last year. We can talk about that, right? And we wouldn't be remiss. But when I think about the greatness of the Miami Hurricanes, I think of all the years gone by at the defensive tackle position. I think of Jerome Brown, right? And I think of Cortez Kennedy, and I think of Russell Maryland, a #1 overall pick, and I think of Warren Sapp. I think of the depth at that defensive line spot, and I don't know that we've had this kind of depth in a long time. And you talked about Bain, and you talked about Mesidor. Interior, I love the interior of this defensive line from one standpoint. We don't know what we're going to get right now, right? And you mentioned it, some question marks there, but very excited about this group overall up front. And I know that with those defensive ends turning up the heat, they're very good against the run. You got a new defensive scheme, right? With Heatherton coming in, he's had big impact right away everywhere he's been. Look at what Minnesota did year one, his turnaround. And I love the way you're flying around the field. You got 5 defensive backs in a 4-2-5. You can mix and match with all those elite athletes. And the thing that I love the most about his defense is you're a quarterback, you get confused, right? So when I look at football games, I look at the line of scrimmage first, which we're talking about, then the quarterbacks. It's a freshman quarterback, as you mentioned, coming down to play as a redshirt in Miami. He's a freshman, right? And that's huge. But a bigger part of that, when you put the heat on him, they're going to want to rely on the running game. And in that 4-2-5 defense, they're great at disguising. You don't know where the blitz is coming from. You don't know the coverages. They're designed to confuse him. So you can literally do so many things within that defensive scheme to disrupt their running game, shoot gaps with blitzes, all kinds of stuff, right? So if you can disrupt their running game and put them into any kind of 3rd and long, man, he's going to be in trouble. And to me, that's where Miami could really win this game, is Mesidor and Bain coming off the edge. And I love Moten. I've always loved Moten from day one. Yeah. And you just have some great depth inside as well. And then all those kids flying all over the field. And Alex, I know you haven't seen much of them, but the biggest benefactor of all that this year, and last year they were definitely the weakest unit on the entire team, is the secondary. So when you look at the defensive front and they're pounding and they're putting pressure, and you look at the linebackers all over the field, it's, to me, the group that's going to benefit the most, the DBs, but they get a new coach, they get a new scheme, they get to really flex their athleticism in this system. So I really think the front 4 for Miami, whoever's in at the time, just rushing the passer, in and out, and not losing much when you bring in that depth. To me, that's one of the big keys. Remember when Vince Wilfork was a freshman, you had a bunch of guys drafted in the 1st round. You had Green and you had Matt Walters. You had just an elite defensive line, but every time you brought new guys in fresh, you really weren't losing anything. And I think this unit has a chance to be like that.
Well, we have a lot more to unpack here with the Postcast King. The team captains had been revealed, and I think it says a lot about the leadership of this team. And there's a couple others I think could have been named captains. We'll get to that. I want to get Gries's perspective because, he and I are kind of old. We remember, the rivalry.
Thank you for putting yourself in my category, man. You're a lot younger than me.
We remember the rivalry that was between Miami and Notre Dame. So you want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new Saturday episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, I know that the game is now officially sold out, which is exciting, but Game Time is not sold out. In fact, the deals get better the closer you get to kickoff. College football's back. I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can sometimes feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Folks, I love the zone deals, too, at Game Time. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Download Game Time today. We're also proudly brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On Canes fans, you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon at your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's really legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Thank you for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen. We got the Postcast King with us. And remember, Gries is going to be on right after the game on Locked On Canes and the Locked On Miami channels. And it's going to be in our Locked On Canes audio channel as well. The immediate reaction and breakdown of Miami versus the Fighting Irish. All right, so Gries, here's what we're looking at. Players who have just been named team captains for the Hurricanes. So you got Francis MAUIGOA, Ruben Bain Jr., Carson Beck, Inez Cooper, Akeem Mesidor. So you have your starting quarterback, and I've been blown away by Beck's leadership. Like, you can see it when you're in practice, when you're out at practice. You can certainly hear about it when you hear coaches and teammates talk about what he's done. So, him being a captain, it's not just because he's the starting quarterback like it's making a captain. He's actually out there captaining this football team. And then the other four guys being of the line of scrimmage. So you got your starting quarterback, you got defensive linemen, you got offensive linemen. It goes to show you the way this team, Gries, is built to lead from the inside out.
Yeah, it sure is. And when I look at Carson Beck as a leader, think about it. Would you say that Georgia is probably the most elite program in the country? It's right up there, right? It's right up there over these past few years. So the culture there, second to none. Second to none. You had Saban at Alabama. Obviously, that was an elite culture. Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman's bringing it back to South Bend. I hate to say the words just, my tongue feels dirty all of a sudden, just tarnished with gold. I don't know what happened, but I feel like you build a program and the players just, mold to that program. And Carson Beck at a program like Georgia with a coach like Kirby Smart, and you think about what they do day in and day out. That's what makes a leader. It's not what you do on the field. That's part of it. Obviously, you need that guy when you get in the huddle late in the game and all right, guys, let's go, or you're on the road, hostile environment. You have that leadership there, but that leadership and that trust and that respect is earned on the practice field. It's earned in the meeting rooms. It's earned outside of all that in this day and age, where when the kids are hanging out outside of the program. It's earned in the offseason when they get together and do workouts together. So the leadership of Carson Beck, he's been tutored and mentored by elite quarterbacks. That to me is a foregone conclusion when a guy like that comes in And you already knew going into last year with all the accolades and everybody talking about him the way they did, much like Arch Manning this year, who, by the way, has been having a lot of trouble against Ohio State. And that game's still going on as we do this. But Alex, when I look at the leadership of Carson Beck, it comes down to one thing. He's obviously the fifth-year guy. He's the guy coming in with all those big starts. Everybody's going to be looking at him. Why? Because he's the guy who's been there. And Cam Ward didn't even have that. So if Carson Beck can come close to doing what Cam Ward did on the field, and I believe, obviously, he can, no doubt, and maybe even exceed it. Yes, I said it. And I think the receiving core, although nobody knows their names now, has a chance to be super elite with the Canes right now. And I'm telling you, when I look at this receiving core, I get very excited. And if I'm Carson Beck, I'm ecstatic. So day in and day out, to have him as a leader, he's been there so many times. Of all the guys who will be on the field tomorrow night, Alex, for this game, he has the most experience in big games, and he's got to play that way. He's got to lead that way, and he's got to play that way. Everybody, there might be 4 other captains, but everybody's going to be looking at him.
Yeah, and when I look over these 5 captains, and this may sometimes change week by week throughout the season. You know, you've got Mesidor, BAIN from the defensive line, MAUIGOA, and Inez Cooper. Inez Cooper, by the way, is a major leader on this football team. I'm glad that he's getting some love. The 4 of them joining Carson Beck, like a couple of other players who I think are right up there when it comes to their leadership abilities. Running back Mark Fletcher Jr.
Yeah,
he really is. He's one of the glue guys in the locker room, and I think he really, he's very, he's not like, I don't think he's like a loud trash talking in your face. He's more of like a quiet, compassionate lead by example. He's compassionate off the field. On the field, he wants to put you on a stretcher. That's why they call him put him on a stretcher, Fletcher. But his leadership is right up there. And Wesley Besaint, I think is another one. And you notice Besaint, Rueben Bain could not attend the ACC Media Days last month because he had a charity event, the same week, which was a good reason, not to go to the ACC Media Days. And Wesley Besaint got the call up to go represent Miami. And that's an illustration of him being right there when it comes to the leadership. Now, another thing that's worth pointing out, Grease, that's a little different from being named a captain, but kind of similar in a way. Mario Cristobal uses the jersey number 1 now. He reserves that for players who really have to earn it. And, last year, the number 1s, Cam Ward, who went on to be, not only the number 1 jersey, but the number 1 overall pick in the NFL, and Kiko MAUIGOA, who's really one of the important leaders at linebacker. I know he had an even better season in 2023, but he was an important part of this team the last couple of years. And so this year, the number 1 jerseys, offense and defense, go to JoJo Trader at receiver, who, I know at a certain point he was a little banged up in camp, but he's healthy now. He's ready to go. He's ready to play this Sunday. I think he's going to have a great year this year.
Yeah, me too.
And then on defense, Mo Toure, transfer linebacker out of Rutgers, who played for Corey Heatherman at Rutgers a couple of years ago, who's had a really good fall camp. He was
one of the many redshirt seniors too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a redshirt. There's so many redshirt seniors and seniors all over the field too. I love that, the 2 1s. That's great insight that you only get from Alex Donno.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And all right, so here, I'd like to get this insight from you, because you go back when it comes to, following Miami Hurricanes football, and you go back to a time, Grease, when Notre Dame for a hot second was an annual rival for Miami. Some of the most bitter feuds, some of the best football games. I'm still angry about the Cleveland Gary thing. No, he didn't fumble.
No, touchdown.
What does this rivalry mean to you?
It means everything. One of the biggest reasons I went to the University of Miami, I can say it now that I'm 53, middle-aged, one of the biggest reasons I went, if not the biggest, was the football program. I grew up in a house with a bunch of stepbrothers and a stepfather who lived in Miami for years. All I heard about was the Dolphins. We watched every Dan Marino game. And then I become a University of Miami fan. I decide one day, and I used to always do this, as we know, as kids, Alex, we'd sit there and we watch all the New Year's Day bowl games, and it was so different back then. There was no playoff. They've tinkered with the system so much. No NIL money, no portal, none of that stuff, and really no legitimate way of determining a national champion. So in the 1980s, which is what we're talking about here as I'm coming up, I discovered the University of Miami football program, and I remember the night like it was yesterday. I'm 12 years old. It's the Orange Bowl. It's the great Nebraska Cornhuskers of Turner Gill and Mike Rozier and Irving Fryer killing everybody all year long with that dumb wishbone, right? Then they come into the Orange Bowl. The University of Miami ends up winning the game. Obviously, Bernie Kosar, the quarterback. The history just keeps on going with Vinny T. They play Penn State. They lose that game. But in the 80s, Miami dominated Notre Dame. And I still remember the 58-7 win where Jimmy Johnson said, hey, we didn't run up the score. Our backups did. And I'll never forget that. That was incredible. But those games, that excitement, the third down and 40 play from Erickson to Randall Hill in the Orange Bowl, and you think back to those incredible games in the Catholics versus convicts in a game that Miami should have won, and you look at what the history books would look like had that happened, and the incredible players that came up in this rivalry and really just stamped their greatness with performances against Notre Dame for the ages. Guys like Irvin and Perriman, and think of guys that you might remember through the years like Lamar Thomas and just some Randall Hill with that huge play. So much of the University of Miami's history and folklore, so much of that, Alex, was the 1980s. Obviously, so many of the championships and so many of those great teams coming in that window. And that was the decade in which Miami was 4-1 against Notre Dame. So that's where the Miami side of this rivalry is really heated up. And that's where everybody talks about these two teams. So what used to happen was Notre Dame as an independent would schedule teams like Miami throughout the season, and they'd play an incredibly tough schedule. And then over the years, they'd get their own TV network, and it didn't matter who they played, and they'd get tons of money. They didn't want to play Miami because there was no real upside, because they were getting beat. Number one, there was a lot of tension and negativity, and the media really played it up, the Catholics versus convicts. But in reality, they didn't want to play us anymore because we were kicking their ass, and we're going to do it again. Okay. So Miami finally gets some of that fresh Irish meat, some of that corned beef coming down. And I'll tell you what, the Canes are ready to feast, Alex. Nobody does well coming to South Florida this time of year. It's a night game. I know, the eyes of the world. It's the biggest matchup of the weekend. Just the history, the elite program that is Notre Dame. It's so much fun to knock them off their pedestal more than anybody else. But this is going to be a task. I look at the history of this matchup, which has nothing to do with these players. You're going to see all these former Canes on the sideline going crazy, running up and down. You're going to have Michael Irvin and guys like that. So that's a lot of fun for the players to know that all those guys are there and that they're playing in a game like this against a team like Notre Dame, where in 30 years, 10 years, 20 years, they can come be on the sidelines when it happens again. So it's a rite of passage. And it matters. It matters that this game is at home. It matters that the former players are going to be there. The history matters from that standpoint. The one part of history I wish that we could have taken with us is something that we could never replicate, which is the Orange Bowl. And I think every Canes fan wishes that, unless you had to use the bathroom. But other than that, you wish that the Orange, so there hasn't been a home field advantage at Hard Rock, Alex, and you said it. I don't remember if you said it on the show yet, but you said it off the air that this game has now been declared a
sellout.
There you go, Miami. Sold out, Notre Dame, home opener. Let's go.
Yeah, and listen, and I see a bunch of Notre Dame fans are like, well, it's only sold out because of all the Notre Dame fans coming, and we're going to take over your stadium.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that, because I was at that game in 2017. It was the loudest I have ever heard Hard Rock Stadium. It reminded me of the Orange Bowl days, Greece, as much as I miss that building. But that was the loudest I have ever experienced Hard Rock Stadium, Dolphins and Canes included. And it was loud because of what Miami was doing, because Notre Dame didn't do anything on that field that day. They got their butts kicked is what happened to them. And that place was crazy. So listen, Notre Dame travels well. I get it. But if you guys think that it's going to be some kind of a fighting Irish takeover, you're going to be sadly mistaken on that. Greece, what's your prediction? Final score.
Okay, well, I love the big bodies up front on the offensive line, and that's one thing that I didn't mention as I was talking about it, is the overall weight and the size of that line. With a guy like Fletcher, who you talked about, put you on a stretcher, Fletcher. So you got Bell, 6'9", 340. I mean, think about that as a left tackle. Good luck getting around him, right? And then the guards with Cooper and McCoy. Yeah, I know we have a rookie playing center, but I look at, and that's important with the calls and everything. It's good to have the game at home. It's great to have the experienced quarterback of Carson Beck. Alex, I told you when we got on the phone earlier this morning to talk about the segment where I was with this game, and it's where I am with every football game. The first place I always look, always always, if you know anything about football, you know that every game is won or lost where? Up front on the line of scrimmage. Offensive line versus their defensive line versus their offensive line. The second thing I look at, and I think Miami's got the edge, as we talked about, in both those areas. I don't think Notre Dame plays another team this season that could say that. Miami can say that, I think, going into this game. It's going to be close, it's going to be tough, but I think we win the battle up front on both sides. I really do. I think they wear down because of the size of our offensive line. Fletcher has a field day, especially in the fourth quarter, after Carson Beck puts up his numbers. That's the script for Miami as we know it, right? So when you look at the quarterbacks, you look at the experience of Carson Beck, all those starts, very few losses. The biggest games a quarterback can play in, he's been there, he's played in them, and he's won most of them, right? Completed 68% of his passes in games like that. So when I look at that to me tips in Miami's favor when you look at CJ Carr, a redshirt freshman for Notre Dame. The running game, Notre Dame's got a great running game. Miami's does too. But when I look at the intangibles, who could make a big play? Who's more likely to make a big play? Who's got more playmakers on the field? I think we all know the answer to that would be Miami. And then you add in the home crowd and that hunger factor. So I think Miami wins this game easily. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it. And you know that I'm a little tepid with my picks. I don't just do this. Miami is going to kill Notre Dame. They're going to wish they never took this game. I'm going to say 34-14 Hurricanes.
Man, I hope you're right. I'm going to be cautious. First game, I'm going to say 23-20.
Big game for Fletcher. Huge.
Yeah, huge. I've been saying 23-20 Miami. I like yours better because I'm probably a little more relaxed in the fourth quarter if that's your final score. But man, guys, we love our man Gries, and make sure you check him out. Locked On Postcast. It's going to be on right after Miami versus Notre Dame. So you're looking at, late night around 11 or so p.m., 11:30. Gries is going to go live on the Postcast right after. Thank you so much, Gries, for spending the time here. And looking forward to talk to you again after this game.
Yeah, and think about it. All day Monday, just stay with Locked On Canes, right? Wherever you get your podcasts, and then YouTube and Roku, and we got you covered, man. It's going to be a big night, no matter what happens in the game, and I think it's going to be a Miami win. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, the great work that Alex has been doing and continues to do day in and day out. It's great to be back with the Postcast, Alex, and to be working with you again. And I'm really looking forward to an incredible year where we're not just relying on Carson Beck to pull a Cam Ward, because the rest of the team got that much better.
By the way, I know you're wearing an old school jersey because I see the Big East patch on there. Who are you repping? Whose jersey is that?
This is Danielle Ferguson, D-Ferg.
Yes.
Shout out D-Ferg. This is the Big East days.
This might be the first shout out he's gotten on this show, so I'm glad D-Ferg gets the shout out. That's a beautiful jersey. Gries
starting tailback in Butch Davis's first year, baby.
Sir. Yeah, well, we'll talk to everyone again after the game on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.